Good evening and welcome to Live at 5, Sullivan Says SoCal. My name is Jerry Sullivan. I'm the founder and chief columnist for SullivanSaysSoCal.com. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to have a look and a chat about Orange County today and the state of ethnic Orange County. This is a matter of particular interest for me. I have lived for extended periods in both Los Angeles and Orange County, and I remember moving from Echo Park, where I lived for a long time, and was a very inner city, quirky, diverse, very nice neighborhood. I enjoyed it very much. It was just beginning to see gentrification when I actually moved down to Orange County and moved to Irvine, which was entirely different, nice in a very different way, not quirky, but had a lot to like about it. And I did enjoy it very much. And I remember people sort of mentioned, oh, well, things are a little bit dull down there. And you'll notice all the architecture is blocky glass buildings. And I sort of thought about that. I was busy working. And so I got into my job and my life in Orange County. And over the course of time, I started to notice those so-called blocky glass buildings. And what I noticed is they may look sort of plain and maybe even a little repetitious, but at different times of day, you would see the most fantastic reflections of sunsets and sunrises in those buildings. And there was, what I figured out is there's a lot more design to them than they looked, than may have, at first glance, one would consider. And they were gorgeous, and they presented this gorgeous changing scenery depending on the time of day, depending on the season of the year. And I think it's a good analogy about Orange County. You have to live Orange County. You have to spend some time there. You have to kind of really experience it to really appreciate it, and probably shouldn't go too far past a judgment on it unless you've done that. And I'm pleased to say that this evening we'll be talking to three people who are extraordinarily well-versed in Orange County, starting with Bobby McDonald. He is the long-serving CEO of the Black Chamber of Orange County, and I want to welcome Bobby now.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
How are you, Bobby? You got a little echo. I think if you could take care of that, it would be helpful. But are you well today?
I'm very, very well today. Thank you.
Good.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Hold on a second. I do have an echo. There you go. But anyway, yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for being so kind to have me. In fact, actually, we go back to, when you came to one of the Black Chamber banquets when Judy Golphin brought you, and that's how I met you. Yeah.
Yeah, that was some time ago. Yeah. It's a pleasure to have you here today. I want to, why don't you, Bobby, just take a minute to start with and give us an idea of the Black Chamber, what it does, how you see its role, and your history with the organization.
Well, first of all, I've been in the county since with the Chamber anyway for 37 years. Chamber's 37 years old this year. We fortunately was founded on the 24th of February back in 1984, right during Black History Month. I've been out in the county since August of 1970 when I first went to Cal State Fullerton. So I had a chance to watch the place grow. I mean, I know where the orange groves were, where Cal State Fullerton now has buildings. I think that Irvine was just, 5 years old or getting close to being built by then. And I've watched it really, really bloom. But the other piece of this is I've watched the diversity grow. I've watched some of the good times and not so good times. But I've had an opportunity to see a lot of positive changes, a lot of changes, a lot of growth. We've come a long way in my 50 years being here. We're now a multicultural, cross-cultural, diversified organization, which we've always been, but we're now a minority-majority county.
And you recently represented the community at a meeting with the Secretary of Labor. And that had to do with, I guess, diversity in terms of employment opportunity. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I'm very, very fortunate because I'm involved with veterans, as you very well know, being a Vietnam veteran and doing a lot in the veterans community here, which we'll probably talk about a little later. But there was a gentleman named Julian Purdy, who's now the chief of staff for the Department of Labor. I met him while he was working for the VA Congress VA building and in that committee. And so he got a chance he knew the secretary was coming out, and he wanted to give me a chance to showcase some of the things we're doing for veterans employment, but also for the diverse community employment. He wanted the secretary to have a roundtable so he could hear what was happening in the Hispanic, the Asian, and the Black community. And of course, the veterans community, looking at seniors and healthcare and the other issues. So it was very, very nice to host him and have him here and have a real good discussion with only about 10, 12 people in the room. And it was very, very well worth it.
And that's something you can take back to. I think a lot of people think these are photo ops and so on and so forth. But did you come out of there with stuff you can take back to your membership, back to the community, and give them a sense of what's going on? And
not only did we take something back, it was interesting because one of the reporters that was there, I took him out to dinner, and I got a phone call from Julian back in Washington, D.C. saying that 20 minutes later saying, hey, yeah, you guys did a good job. The secretary wants to try to do these across the country. The advance team loved it. They got really good information and positive feedback, which I felt that they probably never do. But the secretary was engaged. He was very, very engaged. He asked questions. He got feedback, and the panel made sure he heard it.
And now you do a lot of your work crosses over with veterans groups also and veterans concerns. And there's a lot going on in Orange County right now about a veterans cemetery. It seems like after a long haul of a lot of back and forth, it's destined for Anaheim. Can you fill us in on that and where the veterans themselves come down on this?
Well, it's been a 10-year struggle. And the city of Irvine had the opportunity with the closing of the bases to put one there. And it's been, well, let's be real nice. It's taken them 10 years to go nowhere. And the Donald Brin, the Irvine company, gave when Todd Spitzer was the supervisor, gave him 280 acres over in Gypsum Canyon, over in Anaheim Hills, because they weren't going to build any houses out there, and said, hey, he wanted to use it for a cemetery. It made sense for the county to put it there because the county's also looking to put a county cemetery there and also put a veterans. Bottom line is Supervisor Wagner had a press conference on July the 1st. We had close to over 120 people there. We had close to over every veterans group in the doggone county, VFW, American Legion, Vietnam veterans, and other groups, Gold Star mothers. All of them are bought into the process because they want to have the cemetery there in Anaheim, which would be awesome. So, in fact, you wanted some hot news Tuesday at the Board of Supervisors. They're going to put together a resolution or a piece forward to give $20 million out of the general fund to help start the process of the cemetery. As of this afternoon, Assemblymember Choi is looking at putting in $5 million to help with the study and get some of the money from about $20 to $25 million to come in also to the county. So that's hot off the press.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate that. And now we're going to thank you very much, Bobby. And I'm going to ask you to rejoin us later. And in the meantime, we're going to bring in Manny Ramirez. Manny is a co-founder of RJI CPAs, also a board member of the Hispanic 100 PAC, and involved with the Orange Catholic Foundation.
Yes, sir. That's right.
So deeply involved in the community. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jerry. Thanks for inviting me to join you on your show today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to have you here. And I wanted to start with talking about the Latino community in Orange County. And you, I know the Hispanic 100 is something you've been involved in, also the Latino Chamber, or Hispanic Chamber. It does seem that there's some deal of reluctance on vaccinations within the Latino community specifically. Can you shed any light on that? Any insights, any ideas?
Yeah, that's a fair characterization. I I think the challenge we have, Jerry, is there's been such a politicization on the solutions related to COVID from the very beginning, kind of from not knowing what the sources from Wuhan were, a little bit of misinformation perhaps in the initial years, the president talking about hydroxychloroquine, for example, working, and then Pelosi and her group saying, no, it doesn't work, and then people having some success with it, and then later using remdesivir as a solution. And so I think in the context of the reporting and the narrative that we've seen, it's created some confusion in the community. Now, we're very grateful that the administration, the prior administration under Donald Trump, was able to fast track some of these vaccines. But the word fast track in vaccines, coupled with complications such as blood clots or some of these rare diseases that are starting, Guillain-Barré, has created a little bit of, I'd say, cautiousness. And as Hispanics, I would say we're not anti-vaccine. Most of us are vaccinated, but we're vaccine cautious. We want to make sure that no one's going to grow a third eye, not to be facetious, or have a medical complication as it relates to this. So I think that there's an opportunity to provide clarity on how the vaccines were developed, how they work, what the complications are, as well as what are some of the solutions that are being presented right now. You hear about hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, remdesivir, working in Mexico, for example, and a lot of the South American countries, to a high efficacy, like 75, 80%. So now people are saying, well, do I need the vaccine if there's a solution? So this complicating balance has created some level of caution, I would say, as it relates to vaccination.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you have an ethnic community that also has media from homelands that may be given a different story than we get. And let's face it, as far as I'm concerned, I'll speak for me, not for you, but coverage of all of this has been, coverage and the politics have been a mess.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can blame anyone for being confused.
Right.
There's other factors. You know, I remember covering stories along with partners in the Spanish language media about a reluctance in the Latino community to sign up as an organ donor.
Yeah.
And some of that had to do with some skepticism about how they might be treated in a hospital.
Sure.
And it was some very genuine concerns and fears, I guess, which maybe I don't understand, but they're real nonetheless. There are concerns. Is that also a factor here? Is the Hispanic experience, does it also inform this?
Sure. I mean, whether it's a religious belief, a lot of Hispanics are Roman Catholic, and they weren't raised to believe that you should give your organs up. I think that's changed a little bit over the last 20 years as we have second, third, fourth generation Hispanic Americans now. Will I receive the same medical treatment as a non-Hispanic, which during the 50s and 60s in LA just wasn't the case. And so the oral history continues to be passed on from grandparent to parent to the current generation. And yeah, there's been some complications in the I would say in the racial communities that creates a little bit of a concern, frankly. If a kid comes in and he's got 7 or 5 organs that are useful, and there are people that are dying, 1 versus 5, that's the concern, right? And as a parent of a daughter who's ill, I don't want my daughter to be a donor. I want her to be alive. I want the best medical care for my daughter possible. So I think that is part of our kind of the nature of our community to really not want to give up on our children, no matter what's happening medically with them.
And there's also just to give some context, Orange County is a place where the Latino equivalent of the Brown versus Board of Education happened in Orange County, and it was a fight to get for Hispanics in Orange County to get equal education. Even today, I think Mission Viejo just went to election districts by geography, or it's just agreed to do that, and that's so there's some reason for that skepticism. So let's just, it is there, and there's reasons for it and everything else. But what do you do about it? What could be done, do you think?
Yeah, we have to keep communicating, I think, what our policies are and how they're going to be executed in our community. And I just think of good, clean, careful communication within all of the minority communities in Orange County. to reassure them that we have their best interest at heart is probably a great starting point. And over time, trust will be built.
It seemed like a lot of officialdom was hopeful that celebrity or influencer endorsements of the vaccine would work. It doesn't seem to have gotten very far. Is it more, like you said, just the hard everyday work of communicating clearly?
I think it is. I think it is, Jerry. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Manny. I'm going to ask you to stay around, and we're going to bring in Jack Toan. And Jack is the Chief Operating Officer of the Illumination Foundation, also with Asian American Futures, and the president of the UC-I Alumni Association, I believe. How are you doing, Jack?
Great. Thanks, Jerry, for the opportunity to have this conversation.
Absolutely. Let me start with this. From the point of view of and I know the term Asian American includes a number of ethnic communities. And in Orange County, Vietnamese, Chinese American, Korean American, and several others, not to mention South Asian. But if you could speak as comfortably as you may about the overall outlook on vaccines. It seems like the uptake or the acceptance is higher in the Asian community. Any reasons why?
I think I'm not sure on the reasons why. I think it's partly, back to what Manny was saying, is really about communication, right? I know there's a lot of nonprofits that are really working really hard to do outreach within the community. But one of the problems still, though, is as you alluded to, the segmentation of what we call the Asian community. It's sort of a lump moniker that goes on a very diverse group of people that speaks different languages, that have different cultural backgrounds, and so some of the maybe the fear of the vaccine may be cultural, some of it may be a little bit political, but certainly communication is a difficult issue to have, and so you have to be able to communicate in language sometimes about the efficacy of the vaccine and why you need the vaccine, and sometimes that's difficult when you have so many languages that you have to deal with.
And some of the there is a significant elderly populations in each of the Asian communities in Orange County. Does that language become more important as you're dealing with an older person? Absolutely,
because I think there's still you can essentially, Orange County has to Bobby's point earlier, has become very diverse, and so there's communities where you can live there and are able to speak whether it's Vietnamese or Chinese completely, and so our senior population don't necessarily have that cultural competency or the language skills to be able to really truly understand. But really, if they have family and children, and in our community, that's a lot of word of mouth is really kind of the way to communicate. The younger generation, I think, is a little bit different, and they approach the vaccine usage in a more educated way. And so we rely on them to communicate with the senior population within our community.
And now let's talk a little bit about while COVID has been roiling us for the last year and a half, we've also been undergoing this era of racial reckoning in America. And one of the uglier outcroppings, I guess, of it has been this wave of anti-Asian hate or crimes against Asians, or however you want to put it. But can you tell me how that's affecting the Asian communities in Orange County? Do you have a read on that? Or
yeah, it's had a tremendous impact in our community. And when I say our community, I'm talking about the Asian community as a whole. With COVID and some of the rhetoric that went around during that time about how this is the China flu, and I mentioned how diverse our community is, but everybody became sort of Chinese, right? And it just the hatred that came from that, and I don't think it was because of COVID. I think COVID and some of the rhetoric that was happening allowed something that was already there to really surface, and it made it okay for people to verbalize and to act out in violence and to point fingers and lay blame. The Asian community has, for years and generations in the U.S., have had a history of being the other. And never really belonged. Even when many of us are born here, Many of us have immigrated here, and have naturalized as U.S. citizens, but can never be accepted as American for some reason. And there's a history of laws that have been put in place that have always made us the other. But the idea of the minority myth of the stereotype that Asian Americans have it all together and they're doing really well. Look at their numbers, they're homeowners, and they have high income. That's really a small segment of the Asian community. But when you disaggregate the data and look at specific community, and I'm including Pacific Islanders as well in this, there is a tremendous need within those particular communities. You talk about the Southeast Asian community, there's tremendous needs there. But because we lump this data together, there's this lumping effect that doesn't help with this really truly understanding what this community deals with. And so, the hate has just gone up across the country. I think it's the data says 105% increase in hate crimes against Asians. In Orange County, the OC Human Relations have indicated there's been a 10-fold increase in reported hate crimes against Asians. And I know friends and family members who have actually faced this, and whether it's verbal or physical, it's a problem, and it's almost, I would even say, maybe a crisis that's happening in terms of this emerging hate against this community.
And let me just back up, because one of the things you mentioned was that this is something that perhaps was there, and all of a sudden these events made people feel as though it was okay to act on it. So tell me how that is prior to this, walking around every day as an Asian, doing business or operating or just carrying out your life in Orange County. So is that something that is constantly on your mind?
It is definitely something that's on most of our minds now, being Asian. If you have an Asian background, you're thinking about it. I'm thinking about my parents, my father, who takes walks every day around Irvine. I mean, you hear the news of people being attacked in Irvine, the safest city in the U.S., right? Just because of a race issue. I worry about my parents. I know many of my friends are also concerned about the senior community within our group, and we've seen news of people really getting hurt, literally punched in the face and hospitalized. And so it's something we're always thinking about. Businesses are now, you can find this all over YouTube of how customers would come in and have issues and start throwing racial slurs and it's because of you that we because of you that we have the coronavirus, the China virus. You brought it here. Go back to your country. You don't belong here. Those are things that we're hearing across the board, it's safety has become an issue within our community. There are groups now that are volunteering to spend time to teach self-defense to our senior and younger people. But the positive thing maybe that's coming out of this is actually brought our community together, and really our activists are looking at ways to really essentially build power and really create a voice for our community to be heard. And so it is a difficult time, but at the same time, I also feel a shift in our community as well of being empowered to speak up.
And is there, and not to approach this in sort of a backhanded way, and I don't mean to make light at all, but at some point, is there almost a relief that this has been revealed?
I would say, I don't want to say yes, because it's people are getting hurt and people are getting traumatized, right. And there's a whole community that was already traumatized by war that are here in Orange County, and so this is, and then they come here thinking they're welcome, but then realizing they're not welcome and they're actually hated. I mean, there's another trauma that comes through, and so, I would admit that it is good to see where it is coming from, and to know that you know what, it's not completely gone, and there are issues that we have to deal with. I mean, it's when the issues are hidden away and still, fester, that's when it causes more of a problem. And so the fact that it is now out in the open for us to feel empowered to speak up and to say something and to advocate for change, that is an important and positive step in the right direction.
And now, one of another aspect of the community you touched upon that a lot of people maybe not don't consider at first glance is the socioeconomic conditions of certain groups within the Asian community. Could you take an opportunity to tell us a little bit about the Illumination Foundation, some of your other projects, and how that speaks to need in general or in the Asian community?
Illumination Foundation is an organization that has its core competence in housing and healthcare for the homeless. And as we all know, homelessness is sort of the crisis of this century for I think our country as a whole. But in Orange County, it's been a problem that's been in the highlights quite a bit. So it is a huge need, and it's been a blessing for me to have this opportunity to serve on the board of Illumination Foundation now in a staff role to really be able to be a part of changing that situation and really breaking the cycle of homelessness. So I couldn't say enough about how wonderful our staff are in terms of how they're caring for our friends and neighbors who are experiencing homelessness.
I appreciate that very much. And now I'd like to bring our other guests back for a broader discussion, if we could, please. There we go. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I wanted to start with Manny because I failed to give Manny a chance to explain a little bit about the Hispanic 100 and that group. Manny, your RJI is one of the leading CPA firms in Orange County and has been for years. But your work with the Hispanic 100 would be a real community-based sort of effort that you make. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So interestingly enough, I left Price Waterhouse about 30 years ago and joined RJI CPAs. And among the first things the managing partner, Robert Miranda, said is you need to be part of the community. You need to give back to the Hispanic community. You need to have a charity. You need to be involved politically. And I just sat there and thought, I just want to do tax returns. Can I just do tax returns, please? And so I joined the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, met Bobby McDonald probably 30 years ago. And it was as a result of my involvement with the Hispanic business community that I conceived of the idea of creating the Hispanic 100 about 15 years ago, identifying 5 of the leading Hispanic business owners of the time to create and identify 100 business owners that could start to become engaged in the political process. Unfortunately, for many of our community, no matter how involved you are in politics, especially if you're from Mexico, South America, it's almost as if it has no impact. And so we were just trying to get business owners, like Bobby does at the Black Chamber, to be engaged, to vote, to get other people to vote. The result has been we created one of the most effective Hispanic business packs in the state of California to identify and assist people to become politically involved and run for office, and to mentor anywhere from 10 to 20 high school aged children who want to attend college, and to provide them scholarships through our annual dinner or through our golf tournament. And by connecting these young aspirational Hispanic future leaders with current business leaders, we think that we can help expedite the leadership growth among our community, much like the Black Chamber has done for so many years. So that's pretty much what the Hispanic 100 has been doing over the last 50 years.
And that brings us to the next subject. And, it's very, Orange County is obviously more diverse than I think most people realize. I don't know, is it actually majority minority now, Bobby, or has it gone majority?
Oh, yeah. It's Hispanic, Asian, and I like to tell people the black community kind of makes it stay so it won't go back on the other side because we're only 1.7% of the population.
Well, yeah, it all counts. Now each of these,
yes, it does.
Yes, and each of these ethnic groups, again under the broad umbrella of Asian, Latino, Black, there are more conservative and less conservative experiences and attitudes and outlooks. A lot of the Vietnamese Americans here carry that experience from the war in Vietnam and tend to be anti-communist and run a little more conservative. Their children and grandchildren probably less so. And there's all these fault lines or differences, or however you want to put it, within those communities. All at a time when Orange County is sort of undergoing its own change. It used to be what did Reagan say, the place where good Republicans go to die? That was Orange County. And now it was solidly red, dependably Republican, and no longer. So where are we now? Are we purple? Or are we turning blue? Or are we as red as ever? Bobby, where is Orange County now in those political terms?
Oh gosh, it's changing. I'm not ready to say it's purple, but I am saying there's a big change, and the reason why there's a change is because, Jack alluded to it, and you alluded to it earlier about COVID. I kind of want to say COVID has probably been a blessing to us, because all these things were festering down underneath the ground. It's all up here, so it's all out here now for us to deal with. And we all have to deal with it. I guess maybe because we went through some turmoil in the country, we have to deal with it now, and especially Orange County. If we're the sixth largest nation as a county, okay, or whatever it is that's being played, we're being looked at, and we're the agents of change. I mean, the state of California is an agent of change. And so when you look at the way the districts are set up now, there, especially here in Orange County, it's changing. Not that it won't change back or whenever, but people are more engaged now. I like to believe it. We're out there. I mean, to have the Vietnamese community and the Asian Business Association and all those different other groups call us and say, we need the Black Chamber to come out and march with us. The LGBT community, come on out and march with us. I mean, I have to say, I've been around the chamber all these years. It's the best year the chamber's ever had. I'm busy. COVID's done a lot for me. It really has. And when you look at it, it's to the point where everybody's engaged now. Now, it's kind of hard because you really don't want to get in a debate because somebody figures they have to win. You have to have a good conversation so you can walk away friends. But
that seems to be it could get more difficult all the time. But Manny, let's ask you, Manny.
Yeah, Jerry, I have to counterpoint and respectfully counterpoint, Bobby. I think COVID was the biggest curse for the Hispanic community. It shut down our restaurants and our manufacturing jobs. People were unemployed. Governor Newsom said we need to shut down for a year, and Governor DeSantis in Florida says no, people need to feed their families. And Governor Abbott of Texas says no, we got people that have to feed their families. And while the governor's having French laundry dinners and keeping his winery open and shutting everyone, it was a disaster for our community. Hispanics, like some other ethnic communities, were for some reason affected disproportionately, maybe due to weight, maybe due to diabetes. And so I would say COVID may have brought a lot of issues to the forefront for discussion, but I think that the way the administration in the state of California has administered during this has been a disaster. I will, to your specific point, tell you that during Trump, we had a tidal wave that moved the county all the way to blue. All 5 seats that were Republican in Orange County became.
And by that you mean the congressional seats.
The 5 congressional seats, yeah, Jerry. Yeah. The 5 congressional seats became blue. I mean, it was such an anti-Trump vote that he did not resonate here. The narrative that was displayed in Orange County and California was very effective by the Democratic Party. All 5 seats. Now, thanks to the progressive element and thanks to the socialist and Marxist elements of the Democratic Party, people said, well, hold on. Those of us that are Cuban, we don't want to see that again. Those of us that are Vietnamese descent, we don't want to see communism and progressivism in California. And now, as a result, we have 2 of the 5 seats that have turned back to Republican. Young Kim, Korean descent, Michelle Steele, both Asian Americans. So I think that Orange County is a little purple, like in a bruised way, in that it seems like the politics has gotten a little rough and tumble, and only time will tell. Only time will tell. But it's going to be an interesting time for us, I think, in politics in Orange County.
Jack, how do you see it?
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I think it is a bit purple. I like the way you put it. It's a purple from being bruised. But I think we got to pay attention to what's coming up next. Like things like redistricting, right? That can really, for our ethnic community, that can really take our voice off the table too. And so you got to pay attention for the next 10 years. So that's something that we got to be really careful about. And it's being in office isn't enough just because you're of an ethnic descent. Because as you alluded to, there's certainly diversity. In the Asian community, certainly diversity in which way they lean, depending on which generation you're talking about, right? So we're on the cusp of change, and I think it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen in the next election and with the whole redistricting effort.
Yeah, it seems to me purple's healthy. Purple means nobody can take it for granted. Purple. Now, if it's bruised purple, that's not great, but we hope that will eventually heal up. But purple means your politicians had better earn your vote every time out. But are they doing that, Bobby? Are they getting out there and earning it?
I believe they are. I mean, people are more accountable now. People are asking the right questions. They're looking, and some are more intelligent than others, but they're asking questions. I still think that we have an issue where, I like to say it because when I was in the service, one of the reasons why I went to Vietnam and a few other veterans did, because we wanted to make sure that we regarded our rights, okay, our First Amendment rights, our right to speech, and some people are taking it and going the other way, but they earned that. We gave them that right to have the right to speak this way or that way, which is fine. But I just think that I see it being a little bit more rude, okay. But be that as it may, it's an opportunity for us to grow, and that's how I see it. It's an opportunity to grow. We're given a choice, and the choice now is to make something happen with what the situation is now, and we can make that difference. And the legislators, I think, see that now.
And I think getting back to Bobby's point about being a bellwether. I mean, Orange County. Another thing I think a lot of people don't realize is while it exists right next to LA and maybe overshadowed numerically. Standing alone, it's bigger than Pittsburgh or St. Louis or Cincinnati or a lot of other what have traditionally been considered major metro areas in the United States. And, as a very urban metropolitan area in its own right, with all those concerns and the urban, all the challenges that come with urban concentration. What do you see as some of the bigger challenges for the individual ethnic communities that you're speaking about today? Jack?
I think the biggest challenge that we have right now is, Orange County, as we talked about, is a minority majority, right? And with the Asian population is around 22% at this point. Yes. And it really, if you just look at Orange County, this is the image what America in the future will look like. And in the Asian community, it's one of the fastest growing minority segments as well. And so this is what, and as we move east and then from the east moving west, this is what America is going to look like in the diversity that's going to go across the country. And so we're a bit of a petri dish to demonstrate what we can do as a diverse community and how we should live as a diverse community. And so the work that's happening now in our community is, I mentioned earlier, is about power building, and power building in the sense of being heard and really sharing the voices of those in our community that haven't been heard, and specifically within the minority segments, and really highlighting the need. And so, my ask for our elected officials is let's not make policies that are just focused on the Asian population, because unless you understand the specific needs of the different enclaves and the different ethnicity that are within our group, you don't truly understand what the needs are. And so as policies are being made, that they be made with the correct data and the correct intelligence. So that's where we need to go. But that base is starting now, and I can't wait to see where it's going to go in the next 5 to 10 years.
And Manny, if you had a single challenge to call out for the local Hispanic community, what would it be?
To get involved, to stay involved. You know, when the founding fathers created this nation, they said, out of many cultures and diversity, one nation. And I think the country does its best work when we as Americans are free to chase the American dream. When the government doesn't get in our way, they lower taxes so that we can keep our money to give jobs and to feed our families. When we have an opportunity to live the American dream and have, if we want to work the 80-hour weeks, to have a little more than our neighbor, to allow us to do that. And so I think this is a unique time in American history. Never in my time, having studied American history, that I think, or that I would witness profound socialists like Bernie Sanders say we need to be like Venezuela and Cuba. I think this is the greatest assault on Americans' foundation that I've seen certainly in my short lifetime. And I'm hopeful that Hispanics start to realize that only through their involvement will the American dream continue for our children.
And you obviously, in today's parlance, you would come down on the conservative side of today's politics. How do you think the community is in general in Orange County, the Hispanic community?
Very diverse. I would say that if you're on unemployment, if you're struggling to make the American dream, you may rely on government to give you that handout. But the Hispanic community that I know is highly aspirational. They're willing to work two or three jobs like my father did, to send their children to private schools, modern day high school locally, to have an opportunity to be a CPA. And that's the community that I know. We just want a chance to live the American dream, to work for it. We don't want the government handouts. So I would say most of us are free market, pro-business Hispanics that want a fair shot at the American dream. That's what I would say.
Bobby, from the point of view of the Black community, any particular challenges you'd like to see addressed?
Well, I would like to say that. I'm watching some of the challenges get undone, if you will. I mean, I'm looking at, like I said, I've been here for about 50 years. I won't say several thousand, but I've been here for 50 years, and I'm watching now sundown cities have Black mayors.
Bobby, take a minute and tell us what sundown. I don't think everybody knows what a sundown city is.
Oh, so now I got to give a history lesson on being in Orange County.
Here we go, Bobby. Here we
go. Anyway, a sundown city back in the old days meant that if you were Black or Latino, you couldn't be in that town after sundown, which was usually 6 o'clock. You had to find some other place, which was unusual because even with the two military bases, ethnic soldiers, Black soldiers, had to move to certain places in Santa Ana. Couldn't go to Tustin, couldn't go to Orange, Anaheim. All those different places had places you couldn't be. You had to be out.
Now you said back in the old days. How long ago was that?
Had to be the 60s, 70s.
So not that long ago.
Not that long ago.
Well, it's old for me, but 60s, 70s. I mean, it took almost to the 80s before we got the first Black elected official in Orange County, which was Webster Guillory. Mama Mayor of all places was the first Black mayor and city councilwoman over at Lake Forest. We've lucked out with Karen Robinson at Costa Mesa, city councilwoman, the first Black mayor, and the first Black woman judge. So, there's just a lot of positive Black history here that's come about. Who would ever thought that Tustin, such a sundown city, would have had not only one, but two, the first Black male in Al Murray and the first Black female, which is Letitia Clark now. Yeah. So I see the positives. I see. Right. There's still some stuff here that you want to play with, but it's coming. And one other thing I'd like to add is that my good buddy Ruben Franco over at the Hispanic Chamber is now leading the Hispanic Chamber. And soon as Black Lives Matter hit, he called me and says, Bobby, we had that Orange County group with all the different ethnic chambers. Let's bring that back again. So we did. What's now called the Orange County Diverse Business Leaders Coalition, because that's one of the ways we kept it going on, making sure that we're involved with the Hispanics and doing Hispanic Heritage Month, Asian Pacific Islander Month, all those different things. So we knew we were part of the group and in the community to support each other. Okay. Just like when Jack was with Wells Fargo, he helped out all these different groups and the veterans.
That's great. And now I got one last question for each of you, real quickly. I'll take a long time to ask it, but then I want a very short answer. I notice I'm in LA now, and they've been trying to build a streetcar going around downtown for, I think, the last 10 or 15 years. I notice the 5 freeway has been under construction for as long as I can remember. Okay, right all the way right down to Buena Park, in the Orange County line. Now in Orange County, I was telling you earlier, I take a run every once in a while along the Santa Ana River. I'm running down there the other day, and that bridge for that streetcar they got going from Santa Ana to Garden Grove is done, and they're rolling. That's going to open in a matter of months, not years. And that 405 widening is just about done. It started a couple of years ago, and it's just about done. Does that say something about Orange County? There does seem to be an efficiency to the delivery of goods and services from the public sector. Is that something that has to do with the accountability, or is it credit to the taxpayers holding people accountable? What is it? Manny?
Yeah, I mean, Orange County has always, I'd say in recent history, been the measurement of accountability. When Gray Davis decided to triple the car tax, it was Orange County and the Lincoln Club of Orange County that said, we're going to recall him. And we recalled him and put in Governor Schwarzenegger. When they were looking to find a way to stop this pandemic shutdown, and they wanted to figure out who could we start to create accountability to Governor Newsom, it was the Lincoln Club of Orange County that helped to fund and obtain 2 million signatures to tell him, open up the state. Orange County has a bright future. As powerful as San Francisco is in sending people to office, Orange County is the counter to create and hopefully bring California back to a more reasonable business environment. Hopefully to stop this exodus that we're seeing here out of California.
Jack, how do you see it? Are those examples of sort of an efficiency, accountability?
So, you know, I think, you know, it kind of the way we describe, if we go and say where outside of this area and say where you're from, Orange County, like, you know, we say Orange County like it was a city, right?
Yeah.
Orange County is not a city, and we at times forget that we're made up of
I think 34 cities, right?
Yeah, 34
cities, and so efficiency probably is not the right word for it. I think there's a lot of, you know, certainly a lot of red tape that's kind of built in, and so I think that if we want to look at this as Orange County as a city, we need to have a new approach, and we need to look at it and approach the work in that way. I mean, because the way it is working right now, there's just there's too many layers and too many people involved, and you know, the county might want to do something, the city doesn't, and vice versa, and it just makes it that much more difficult. So I would not choose efficiency as the word to describe any of this right now.
And Bobby, let's close with you. How do you see it?
I think Jack hit it right on the head. You know, we got 34 municipalities that their own fiefdom. The fact that it went from Garden Grove to Santa Ana on that bridge is awesome. Okay, this ain't Los Angeles where you have the red car going down Long Beach Boulevard, if you're old enough to remember the red car. All right, but I mean, because we've already heard a long time ago that they were going to do something with Disney to try to go down Patella. You know, that all those things, it's good till you get to a certain point. I'm going to totally agree with Jack. So we what's good for Anaheim may not be good for Lake Forest and now the new cities that are out there. We're different. We're a different animal, really different animal.
I think that's
we're run by the sport supervisor.
Yeah. I think that says it all.
We're a different animal.
I appreciate it, fellas. I guess we better wrap up, but thank you very much, all of you, for joining me. And,
Thank you, Jerry.
it's been a great
Appreciate
conversation.
it. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. This is great.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Say, Jack.
Okay.